You know, when we started to see the sellers were already involved in this, we knew that we had to wait for the price to press up again. So obviously, when we're looking at this trade, of course, we're looking at these option expiries. Option expiries. So obviously, we had this very, very, very obviously clear short sell on pound. Very clear short sell on sterling. But we need to see if we had enough excuses, because the concern, my biggest concern was that obviously we were seeing a bid on the S&P. So we had this beta bid coming in. Overall, we had the beta bid, and that's obviously going to be positive, the pound. So it might well be the case that they decide not to unwind their positions, but instead to hold those longs for a little bit longer than they ordinarily would. So that's obviously going to cause us problems. The second issue we had, of course, was very straightforward. We had a data release at 3 o'clock. So with the data release coming out at 3 o'clock, it's not the biggest data release we're ever going to get, but it was obviously factory orders. Okay, so when we got the factory orders, the disappointing thing, in some respects, was that the factory orders came in poor. So when the factory orders came in poor, and you can obviously see that that adds to the overall storyline, we can obviously recognize that we need to factor that into our thoughts as well. So the factory orders came in and they were poor, and that's going to be dollar negative, of course. That's going to be dollar negative. In other words, GPP positive. So now we've got two problems coming into this data. Now we've got two problems. We've got the beta that's positive, which is positive for the pound, and we've now got a factory order number that just came out, which is also positive sterling. Well, our job here was to see if they had enough excuse to unwind the long positions at 3 o'clock fix. So obviously our trade is that we want to be short, of course, in terms of the New York fix, the New York cut. The New York cut is a short GBP trade. So we already know that. We know that this morning, we know that this afternoon, we know that this evening, we know that anytime we want to look at it. We know that the cut trade is a short sell on sterling and on the euro. So obviously when the sellers came in way too hard at the top line, that was our other problem, wasn't it? So the final problem we had to this whole entire jigsaw was that there was too many shorts. And this is my final tweet on the subject here. There was too many shorts coming in. Okay, so this is the biggest single problem we've got. So we already know that there are too many shorts. The pound sellers have already come in way too hard at top lines. And we've got to be careful. So in other words, we had an awful lot working against us on this trade. So that's why when I sold it when the data came out and it spiked. And then I saw that it spiked. Of course, then I thought, okay, well, worst case scenario is some of them are going to take some of the positions out. Best case scenario, they all take the positions out. So I knew that there was an opportunity to make some easy money, but obviously there's a lot of things acting against me here. Too busy on the short sell, beta positive, which is positive pounds, and therefore when the data came out, it was also positive pounds. I had nothing to offer into until the data came out. I had nothing to offer into. And all I had to then do was try and experiment with a little bit of top edge, think about where that top edge might be located, and then, of course, work the trade. Now, you'll be able to recognize that from the actual full-on screenshot that we had at that stage. You know, when you look at the overall screenshot, you'll be able to get a good handle on exactly the challenges that we were facing at the time. And it wouldn't be lost on anybody that did the order flow class, of course, how difficult this trade actually ended up becoming, even though it would have been a relatively straightforward short for anybody using the option expiries. You can see that the delta positioning was really, really against us. Look how short that market was, guys. Look how short the market was. Well, could that not have been the dealers already taking their positions on the short? Could that not have been the dealers unwinding positions already? Did they not already maybe do the trade and therefore it's already gone? Could that not be an excuse? Could that not be a reason? Could that not be potentially an answer to that challenge? So this could be a question about this, couldn't it? So we could say that the dealers already shorted, or let's not call it shorted, let's say unwound. And now we don't know if that's the case, but it looks on the face of it as if perhaps it is the case. So the dealers have perhaps already started to unwind this a little bit earlier than usual. And of course, that's the challenge we've got, because obviously when that unwind comes in, what I said in the tweet, if you remember, was we're expecting the squeeze. Now that was at 220. This is 220 here. That's when we sent out the squeeze tweet, if you remember. So at 220 here, which is this price area here, that's when we told you that the squeeze was going to come into the books. 220, expect the squeeze, so be careful. And that's exactly what we got following that tweet. We got the squeeze. And then, of course, you know, the challenge, of course, is that we're on the wrong side of the whole entire trade here, aren't we? We're on the wrong side of the delta. We're on the wrong side of the data. We're on the wrong side of the overall beta view of the equity markets at this stage. And we still made money. So imagine if we were on the right side of that stuff. Imagine if we were on the right side of the delta. Imagine if we were on the right side of that data release. How much more money we would have made during that process. It would have been crazy, wouldn't it? We'd have made a lot of cash on that. So even though we were on the wrong side of everything, we still made money because the unwind is still going to be done by some of those traders. Great example to look at. And well done anybody that actually did the trade. Now let's catch up with the, in fact, if I still got it. Let's catch up with that index arb trade that we were on the last time. You might remember we were on